He fired the one woman his dying wife begged him to keep, and 3 days later, his sons stopped speaking. Not a word, just silence, the kind that feels like something inside them had died. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what his wife had hidden on her laptop, a secret so devastating it would destroy everything he thought he knew. Terry William pulled up to his Virginia water estate 2 days early. 6 weeks in Singapore, deal closed. All he wanted was to see his boys. He walked through the side gate expecting quiet, order, the kind of control he'd built since Sarah died. But what he saw stopped his heart. On the lawn, his 3 sons sat in a cheap plastic tub, covered in mud, screaming with laughter, the kind they hadn't made since their mother's funeral. And Mary Walker, the nanny he'd hired 6 months ago, stood over them with a garden hose, soaked, smiling, like she'd unlocked something he didn't know his sons still had. Something snapped inside him. What the hell is this? The laughter died. His sons froze. Mary's smile collapsed. I leave for 6 weeks and come home to find my sons being treated like animals? Mr. William, they were just, you're done. Pack your things. I want you gone tonight. The words came out cold. Final. His sons started screaming. Mama Mary! Mama Mary! But Terry had already turned away. That night, alone in his study, Mrs. Patel brought him Sarah's laptop, the one he hadn't opened since she died. Mrs. Sarah made me promise, she said quietly. If you ever sent Mary away, I was supposed to show you this, a folder on the screen. For Terry, if he pushes her away. Password hint, where you proposed. He typed it in. The folder opened. 12 videos, all from Sarah's final months. He clicked the first one. Sarah's face appeared, thin, pale, eyes burning with something he couldn't name. Terry, if you're watching this, you've just made the worst mistake of your life. His hands went cold. Mary isn't who you think she is. Outside, a taxi pulled away. Mary was gone. Upstairs, his sons had stopped crying. They'd stopped everything, and Sarah's voice echoed in the dark. What I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about her, about me, and about the man who's been standing beside you all these years. Before we go any further, subscribe, hit like, and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happens next will show you that sometimes the people we push away were sent by God to save us, and that the truth Sarah left behind wasn't just about Mary, it was about something far more dangerous. I hope this story reminds you that kindness comes from the heart, even when the heart is breaking. Now let me show you what Sarah said next. Sarah's face filled the screen. She looked so small, so tired. The blue cardigan hung off her shoulders like it was too heavy to wear. But her eyes, God, her eyes, they were sharp, alive, like she knew exactly what was coming. Terry, just his name. But the way she said it made his chest tighten. If you're watching this, you've just fired Mary. And I need you to understand something before you do anything else. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Mary Walker isn't just a nanny. She's Dr. Mary Walker. She has a doctorate from Cambridge, child psychology. She ran a practice on Harley Street, one of the best in London. Families waited months to see her. She was brilliant, Terry. Successful, everything she'd worked for. Terry's hands gripped the edge of the desk, and she walked away from all of it. For us, for our boys. Sarah leaned closer to the camera, and he could see the tears in her eyes now. When I was dying, I knew what would happen. I knew you'd try to raise them the way your father raised you. Perfectly, controlled, safe. But Terry, safe isn't the same as alive. Her voice cracked. I needed someone who understood grief, someone who knew what it felt like to lose everything and still choose to keep loving. So I found Mary. Terry's vision blurred. She lost her little sister when she was 19, leukemia. She was just a kid herself, studying at university, and she got the call that her baby sister was dying. She dropped everything, sat by that little girl's bedside at Great Ormond Street Hospital for 3 weeks, held her hand while she slipped away. Sarah wiped her eyes, and when it was over, when they buried her sister, Mary made a promise. She promised she'd spend the rest of her life helping children who were drowning in grief, teaching them it was okay to feel, okay to cry, okay to still find joy even when everything felt broken. Terry couldn't see the screen anymore. The tears were too thick. Our boys are her mission, Terry, her calling, the way she keeps her sister's memory alive. She didn't take this job for money. She took it because I begged her to. Because I knew God. I knew that after I was gone, our sons would need someone who understood that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to carry the love forward. Sarah's voice softened. I set up a trust for her, £400,000, through my solicitors in Windsor. I did it so you couldn't just dismiss her the first time she scared you, the first time she let the boys get messy, the first time she reminded you that love isn't something you can control. The video paused. Sarah looked directly into the camera, directly at him. Don't push her away, Terry. Please. She's the best thing I could leave them. The best thing I could leave you. The screen went black. Terry sat in the dark, Sarah's voice still echoing in his head. Outside, the taxi was gone. Mary was gone. And upstairs, his sons had finally stopped crying. The silence was worse. He stood, legs shaking, and walked to the nursery. The door was open. Inside, Aaron, Alex, and Adrian sat together on Aaron's bed. Their faces were red, eyes swollen, but they weren't making a sound. Boys, Terry said softly, it's okay. Daddy's here. They didn't look at him. They just stared at the wall. At the mural, Mary had painted a garden full of flowers, each one labeled with a feeling. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss Mummy. Boys? Nothing. Aaron's lip trembled, but he didn't speak, didn't move, and Terry realized with a horror that felt like ice in his veins that something inside them had broken. Something he'd broken. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking, and dialed Mary's number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. Again. This time, a text came through. Mr. William, I understand your decision. The boys will be fine. Give them time. They're stronger than you think. Mary. The formality of it, Mr. William felt like a door slamming shut. He typed back, Mary, please, I need to talk to you. It's about Sarah. The message showed as read, but no response came. Terry sank onto the floor of the nursery, his back against the wall, staring at his silent sons. And for the first time since Sarah died, he let himself break. Because he'd just lost the only person who knew how to put his family back together, and he had no idea how to get her back. Morning came too fast. Terry hadn't slept. He'd spent the night on the floor of the nursery, watching his sons breathe, waiting for them to wake up asking for breakfast, for cartoons, for anything. But when the sun finally broke through the curtains, they just sat up in silence. No words, no tears, just 3 pairs of blue eyes staring at nothing. Mrs. Patel brought breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast cut into triangles the way Mary used to do it. The boys didn't touch it. Come on, Terry whispered, kneeling beside Aaron. You need to eat, buddy. Aaron turned his face away. Alex pulled his knees to his chest. Adrian stared at the mural on the wall, the one Mary had painted. His lips moved like he was trying to say something, but no sound came out. Terry's phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Sir, you need to see this. It's everywhere. He opened the link, and his stomach dropped. The video was grainy, doorbell camera footage from his neighbor's house, but it was clear enough to see him storming across the lawn, clear enough to hear his voice sharp, cold, cruel, cutting through the laughter, clear enough to see Mary's face crumble, clear enough to hear his sons screaming her name as he sent her away. The caption read, Billionaire fires nanny for letting his kids have fun. Number justice for Mary. It had been shared 20,000 times. The comments were brutal. Disgusting. That woman was giving those kids joy and he fired her for it. Rich people are so out of touch, it's sickening. Someone find Mary Walker and give her the life she deserves. Those boys were lashing. When's the last time he made them laugh? Terry's hands shook. His phone rang. His PR team, his lawyer, the head of his company's board. Everyone wanted to know what he was going to say, how he was going to fix this. But he couldn't think, because outside, the gates were filling up with reporters. Cameras, microphones, pointed at his house like weapons. By noon, the story was on the BBC. Tech billionaire under fire after viral video shows treatment of nanny. By evening, it was in The Guardian. Viral moment exposes class divide in Britain's wealthiest communities. And, through it all, his sons stayed silent. 3 days passed. The boys didn't speak, didn't play, barely ate. They sat together in Aaron's room, holding hands, staring at Mary's mural like they were waiting for her to walk back through the door. Terry called a doctor, a pediatrician from Wentworth, a woman with kind eyes who'd treated the boys since they were born. She examined them carefully, gently, but when she came downstairs, her face was grave. "Mr. William," she said quietly, "this is selective mutism. It's a trauma response. They've lost their mother, and now they've lost the person who was helping them process that grief. They don't feel safe enough to speak." Terry felt the floor tilt beneath him. "How do I fix it?" The doctor looked at him with something close to pity. "You bring her back." That night, Terry stood in the boys' room, watching them sleep. They were curled together in one bed, Aaron's arm around Alex, Adrian tucked between them, like they were trying to hold each other together. On the wall, Mary's mural glowed softly in the nightlight. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to miss Mummy. It's okay to need help. Terry's throat burned. He pulled out his phone and called the one person who could find her. "David," he said when his solicitor answered, "I need you to find Mary Walker. I don't care what it costs. I don't care how long it takes. I need her back." There was a pause. "Terry, have you seen the news?" "I know. I don't care. Just find her." Another pause. "I'll do my best. But Terry, she may not want to be found." The line went dead. And Terry stood alone in the dark, surrounded by his silent sons, knowing he'd broken something he didn't know how to fix. David called back within 48 hours. "I found her." Terry's heart lurched. He was standing in his study, curtains drawn against the reporters still camped outside his gates. "Where?" "Wandsworth, a modest flat. She's living off the trust Sarah left her." "But Terry," David's voice softened, "she won't take your calls. I tried. She said she has nothing to say to you." "Then I'll go to her." "She said she'll see you once. Just once. That's all she's offering." Terry closed his eyes. "Set it up." They met 2 days later at a cafe in Richmond. Quiet, overlooking the Thames. Mary arrived in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked different, smaller somehow, or maybe just tired. She sat across from him without smiling. 10 minutes, she said. Terry's throat went dry. I watched Sarah's videos. Mary's expression didn't change. All 12 of them. I know about Cambridge, about Harley Street, about your sister. Still nothing. I know I was, his voice cracked. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover it. Mary looked out at the river. The water moved slowly, carrying leaves and light. "Your 10 minutes are running out, Mr. William." The formality cut deeper than any anger could have. "They've stopped speaking," Terry said quietly. That got her attention. Her eyes widened, just slightly. "Since when?" 3 days after you left." Mary closed her eyes. Pain flickered across her face, real, deep pain. The doctor called it selective mutism. She said they lost Sarah, and then I took away the person who was helping them grieve her. Mary's hands tightened around her cup. "They won't eat, won't play. They just sit in Aaron's room holding hands, staring at the mural you painted, waiting for you to come back." A tear slipped down Mary's cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "Why should I?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why should I come back so you can fire me again the next time I don't meet your standards? The next time a neighbor complains? The next time you feel like you're losing control?" Terry leaned forward. "Because Sarah asked you to. Because she trusted you when she couldn't trust me. And because I'm not asking as their father. I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as someone who's finally starting to understand what Sarah saw in you." Mary stared at him for a long moment. "If I come back," she said slowly, "things change. I'm not staff. I'm not someone you tolerate. Sarah's trust made me independent for a reason. I know. I want legal co-guardianship, equal say in their education, their health, their lives. I want it in writing, reviewed by my own solicitor. And if you ever speak to me that way again, if you ever treat me like I'm disposable, I walk. And I take legal action." Terry didn't hesitate. "Deal." Mary didn't move. "And one more thing. Those boys play in the garden, with mud, with water, with mess. If you want children who feel, who laugh, who heal, you don't get to control how that looks. Sarah understood that. You need to learn it." Terry extended his hand across the table. Mary stared at it, at him, at the desperation in his eyes. Finally, She shook it. "I'll come back tomorrow. Have the paperwork ready." That night, Terry stood outside the boys' room. Through the crack in the door, he could see them, still silent, still holding each other. But tomorrow, Mary was coming home, and maybe, just maybe, they'd find their voices again. He just hoped it wasn't too late to find his own. Mary walked through the door just after breakfast. Terry was waiting in the entrance hall, hands in his pockets, unsure where to stand, unsure what to say. She had one suitcase, the same one she'd left with. "Mrs. Patel will show you to your room," he said quietly. "It's not the staff quarters anymore. I had the guest suite prepared. Your own space. Your own." "Thank you." Her voice was polite, distant. She didn't look at him. Mrs. Patel stepped forward, eyes bright with tears, and pulled Mary into a quick embrace. "Thank God you're back," she whispered. Mary nodded but didn't speak. The boys didn't know yet. Terry had kept them upstairs, afraid of what would happen if they saw her and she changed her mind, afraid of breaking them again. "They're in the nursery," he said. Mary set down her suitcase. For the first time since she'd arrived, she looked at him. Really looked at him. "Are they still?" "Silent," Terry finished. "Yes." Mary closed her eyes, took a breath, and started up the stairs. Terry followed at a distance, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. She opened the door slowly. The boys were sitting on the floor by the window. Aaron had a toy car in his hand, but he wasn't playing with it, just holding it. Alex leaned against him. Adrian stared at Mary's mural like he was trying to memorize it. Mary stepped inside. "Hi, loves." 3 heads turned at once. For a moment, nothing. Just wide eyes and frozen bodies. And then Aaron dropped the car. It clattered to the floor. "Mama Mary." His voice was so small, so broken. Mary's knees buckled. She dropped to the floor, arms open. All 3 boys rushed her at once. They crashed into her like a wave, sobbing, clutching her shirt, her arms, her hair, holding on like she might disappear again if they let go. "I'm here," Mary whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." "You left," Alex sobbed into her shoulder. "You left us." "I know, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Adrian pulled back just enough to look at her face, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Daddy was mean to you." Mary's eyes met Terry's across the room. He stood in the doorway, frozen, watching his sons cling to a woman who wasn't their mother, but somehow had become everything they needed. "It's okay," Mary said softly, brushing Adrian's hair back. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but I'm back now, and I'm not going anywhere. I promise." "Promise?" Aaron whispered. "I promise." Terry turned away before they could see his face. He walked down the hall, into his study, and closed the door. His hands were shaking. He'd brought her back. The papers were signed. Co-guardianship, equal rights, everything she'd asked for. But standing there, watching his sons hold her like she was the only thing keeping them alive, he realized something that made his chest ache. They loved her, not because she fed them or kept them safe or followed a schedule. They loved her because she'd made them feel again. And he didn't know if they'd ever look at him that way. Didn't know if he'd earned it. Through the walls, he could hear their voices now, talking, laughing, coming back to life. And Terry sat alone in the silence, wondering if bringing Mary back would save his sons, or just show him how much he'd already lost. Mary had been back for a week when Marcus Holloway showed up. Terry was in the garden with the boys, watching them play for the first time in weeks. Really play. Aaron was building something with blocks. Alex was drawing with chalk on the patio stones. Adrian sat in Mary's lap while she read him a story about a bear who missed his mother. The sound of gravel crunching made Terry look up. Marcus stepped out of his silver Jaguar, all smiles, his suit perfectly pressed. "There's my godson," he called out, arms open. The boys didn't move. Marcus's smile faltered for just a second. Then he laughed. "Come on, lads." Uncle Marcus brought sweets. Adrian pressed closer to Mary. Marcus's eyes shifted to her. Something flickered across his face, something Terry couldn't quite name. "Marcus," Terry said, standing. "Wasn't expecting you. I know. But the whole of London's been talking about your situation. Thought I'd come check on you, make sure everything's all right." He said it warmly, like a concerned friend. But his eyes stayed on Mary. "Who's this then?" "Mary Walker," Terry said, "the boy's nanny." "Mary, This is Marcus Holloway, my business partner. Mary stood, Adrian still clinging to her leg. She extended her hand. Nice to meet you. Marcus took it, holding on just a moment too long. So you're the famous Mary, the one from all the videos. Mary's smile didn't reach her eyes. I suppose so. Must have been quite the ordeal, all that attention. Marcus turned to Terry. I'm glad you've sorted things out. Though I have to say, mate, giving her co-guardianship, that seems extreme. Terry's jaw tightened. It's what Sarah wanted. Sarah, Marcus's voice softened. God, I still miss her. We all do. He looked back at Mary. Did Terry tell you? Sarah and I go way back. University days. I was best man at their wedding, godfather to the boys. He mentioned it, Mary said quietly. Then you know how much this family means to me. Marcus smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. I just want to make sure they're protected. Something in his tone made Mary's skin prickle. Terry seemed oblivious. We're fine, Marcus. Really. Are you, though? Marcus pulled a folder from his car. Because I've been doing some digging. You know, due diligence. Making sure everything checks out. He handed the folder to Terry. Inside were printed documents. Letters. Complaints. Previous families, Marcus said. From Ascot and Sunningdale. They had concerns about Dr. Walker's behavior, inappropriate attachment to the children, boundary issues. One family even had to let her go. Mary's face went pale. Terry looked at the papers, then at Mary. What is this? I don't know, Mary said, her voice shaking. I've never worked for these families. I've never even been to those addresses. Marcus raised his hands. Hey, I'm just passing along what was sent to me. Anonymously, actually. Someone's clearly concerned. Terry stared at the letterhead. Expensive stationery, the kind Marcus used. Mary saw it too. Her eyes narrowed. Who sent this to you? She asked. I told you. Anonymous. That's convenient. Marcus's smile tightened. Look, I'm just trying to help. Terry's been through enough. The boys have been through enough. I'd hate to see them hurt again because someone didn't do their homework. He glanced at his watch. Anyway, I should go. Board meeting tomorrow. We need to discuss some concerns about your judgment, Terry. Given everything that's happened, just procedural. Nothing to worry about. He walked back to his car, then paused. Oh, and Mary? He looked back at her. Welcome to the family. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of each other. The Jaguar pulled away, leaving dust hanging in the air. Terry stood holding the folder, confusion written all over his face. But Mary wasn't confused. She was staring at the empty driveway, her heart pounding, a cold certainty settling into her bones. Something about Marcus Holloway was very, very wrong. That night, Mary couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Marcus's face, the way he'd looked at her, the way the boys had shrunk back when he arrived. She got up, pulled on a sweater, and walked through the quiet house. The security monitors were in Terry's study. She'd seen them during the day, screens showing different angles of the property. Marcus had installed them months ago. For safety, he'd said. Mary opened the door quietly and stood in front of the monitors. 12 screens, 12 angles, but none of them pointed at the gates, or the driveway, or the perimeter where someone might actually break in. Every single camera was aimed at the house, at the garden where the boys played, at the patio where she sat with them, at the windows of the nursery. Her stomach turned. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Surrey Police website, recent incidents, break-ins in Wentworth. Nothing. No reports. No warnings. No spate of break-ins, like Marcus had told Terry. He'd lied. Mary's hands started shaking. She opened Terry's desk drawer, looking for the paperwork on the security system. Receipts, invoices, anything. Instead, she found something else. A file. Thin. Unmarked. She opened it. Inside was a death certificate. Sarah Elizabeth William. Cause of death. Metastatic breast cancer. But clipped to it was something else. A letter. Hospital stationery. Royal Marsden. Mary's eyes scanned the words. Inconsistencies in patients' medication levels. Blood work does not reflect prescribed dosages. Recommend further investigation. The letter was dated 3 weeks before Sarah died. Mary's breath caught. Someone had flagged Sarah's treatment. Someone had noticed something was wrong, but the letter had never been followed up on. She kept reading. At the bottom, a handwritten note from a nurse. Patient mentioned concerns about medication being altered. Husband's business partner has been asking detailed questions about her prescriptions. Patient seemed frightened but wouldn't elaborate. Mary's blood went cold. Business partner, Marcus. She grabbed the file and ran upstairs. Terry's bedroom door was closed. She knocked once, then pushed it open. Terry. He sat up, groggy. Mary? What? I need you to look at something. She turned on the light and handed him the file. Terry blinked, confused, then started reading. His face changed. Color drained from his cheeks. What is this? I found it in your desk. Terry, someone tampered with Sarah's medication. That's not possible. Read it. His hands shook as he read the nurse's note again. Business partner asking about prescriptions. No, Terry whispered. No. Marcus wouldn't. Where did Sarah get her medication? The pharmacy. Boots. In Weybridge. Marcus used to pick it up for me when I was traveling. He was trying to help. Terry stopped. The words died in his throat. Mary watched realization break across his face like glass shattering. He picked up her medication, Terry said slowly. Every time I was away, he insisted. Said he wanted to help. Said I had enough to worry about. Silence filled the room. Heavy, suffocating. Terry, Mary said quietly, we need to call the police. But Terry wasn't listening. He was staring at the letter, tears streaming down his face, his whole body shaking. He killed her, Terry whispered. Marcus killed Sarah. And in that moment, everything they thought they knew shattered. Terry didn't move for a long time. He just sat there, holding the letter, tears falling onto the paper, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Mary sat beside him on the edge of the bed, not touching, just there. I should have known, Terry finally whispered. I should have seen it. You trusted him. She was dying right in front of me, and I didn't. His voice broke. I didn't question why the treatment wasn't working. The doctors said, sometimes it just happens. Sometimes the cancer wins. And I believed them. Terry. He was there the whole time, at the hospital, bringing her food, asking about her medication, being the perfect friend, and I thanked him for it. Mary's throat tightened. Terry looked at her, his eyes red and hollow. What kind of man doesn't protect his own wife? The kind who didn't know he needed to. But the words felt thin, useless against the weight of what they'd found. They called David Lawn at dawn. Terry's solicitor arrived within the hour, still wearing yesterday's shirt, eyes sharp despite the early call. You're sure about this? David asked, spreading the hospital letter across the dining table. Look at the evidence, Mary said. She'd been up all night, organizing everything. The letter, the security camera angles, the fake break-in reports, the forged complaint letters about her. David read in silence. This is enough to start an investigation, he said slowly. But Terry, if we're wrong, we're not. If we accuse Marcus Holloway of murder and we're wrong, he'll destroy you. The company, everything. Terry's jaw tightened. Then we make sure we're right. David made calls. Within 2 days, they had more. A private investigator, former MI5, someone David trusted, started digging. Pharmacy records from Boots in Weybridge. CCTV footage showing Marcus picking up Sarah's prescriptions, alone, every time. Financial records showing Marcus's gambling debts. Losses at London casinos that stretched back years. Debts that would have been erased if he'd gained control of Terry's company shares. And then the investigator found something that made everything worse. A marriage certificate from 1998. Marcus James Holloway and Sarah Elizabeth Morrison. Mary stared at the paper, her hands numb. They were married? David nodded grimly. For 6 months. She was 22, fresh out of university. The marriage was annulled quietly. Sealed records. She never told you? Terry shook his head, his face ashen. She said her first serious relationship ended badly, that she'd dated someone at Oxford who couldn't let go. But she never said she married him. He never got over her, David said quietly. And when she married you, when she built a life with you, he decided to take it all back. Mary finished. The room fell silent. Terry stood and walked to the window. Outside, the boys were playing in the garden. Aaron was laughing at something Alex had said. Adrian was chasing butterflies. They had no idea their mother had been murdered, that their uncle, their godfather, had stolen her from them. "We confront him," Terry said, his voice hard. "We bring every piece of evidence. We make him confess." "When?" Mary asked. Terry turned, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not rage, not grief, justice. "Tomorrow, at the board meeting, in front of everyone." David hesitated. "Terry, that's risky. If he runs, he won't run. He thinks he's won. He thinks I'm too broken to fight back." Terry looked at Mary. But he didn't count on her. Mary met his eyes, and for the first time since she'd come back, she saw something other than distance between them. She saw partnership. "Let's end this," she said. The boardroom at Canary Wharf was glass and steel, 30 floors above London, overlooking the Thames. Marcus sat at the head of the table, confident, smiling, presenting his case to the board. "Our CEO's recent judgment has raised serious concerns," he was saying. "The viral incident, the public embarrassment, the questionable decision to grant legal guardianship to someone we barely know." The doors opened. Terry walked in, Mary beside him, David Lorne carrying boxes of evidence, and behind them, 2 police officers, DI Sarah Chen and a uniformed constable. Marcus's smile faltered. "Terry." "What?" "Marcus Holloway," DI Chen said clearly, her voice cutting through the room. "I'm arresting you on suspicion of voluntary manslaughter, fraud, and corporate espionage." The boardroom erupted. "Wait," Marcus stood, hands raised. "This is insane. Terry, what are you doing?" "Sit down," Terry said quietly. Something in his voice made Marcus freeze. David Lorne connected his laptop to the presentation screen. "Before we proceed with the arrest, everyone here deserves to know the truth." The screen lit up. Pharmacy records, Marcus's signature. CCTV footage from Boots showing him collecting Sarah's medication, over and over, month after month. "These are prescriptions for Sarah Williams' cancer treatment," David said, all picked up by Marcus Holloway while Terry was traveling for business. Marcus's face went pale. "I was helping. Terry asked me to. We have testimony from the pharmacist you bribed in Egham," David continued. "He's willing to testify that you paid him £50,000 to alter the medication, to replace Sarah's cancer drugs with placebos." Gasps around the table. "That's a lie," Marcus said, but his voice shook. Mary stood. She placed a document on the table. "This is a letter from the Royal Marsden Hospital," she said quietly, "written 3 weeks before Sarah died." A nurse noted inconsistencies in Sarah's blood work. She wrote that Sarah mentioned concerns about her medication being tampered with, that Sarah was frightened of someone asking too many questions about her prescriptions. Mary's voice steadied. "That someone was you." "This is ridiculous." "We also have this." David pulled up another document. "Your marriage certificate. To Sarah Morrison, 1998. Annulled, 6 months later." The room went silent. Marcus's face crumbled. "You never got over her," Terry said, his voice breaking. "Did you?" Marcus stared at him, at Mary, at the evidence covering the screen, and then something inside him broke. "She was mine first," he whispered. "We were supposed to be forever, but she met you at some charity gala and decided I wasn't good enough anymore." His voice rose. "I built half that company with you, Terry. I stood beside you through everything, and you had her. You had the life I was supposed to have." Tears streamed down his face now. "I didn't mean for her to die," Marcus sobbed. "I just wanted her to be weak enough that you'd fail, that the company would struggle, that she'd remember I was the one who was always there." Terry's hands clenched into fists. "But she didn't come back to you," Mary said softly. "She got sicker, and you watched her die." Marcus looked at her, his face twisted with anguish. "I tried to stop it. Near the end, I tried to fix it, but it was too late. The cancer had spread too far." D.I. Chen stepped forward. "Marcus Holloway, you're under arrest." 2 officers moved in. Marcus didn't resist. He just stood there, broken, as they handcuffed him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, looking at Terry. "God, Terry, I'm so sorry." But Terry didn't respond. He just watched as they led Marcus away, and when the boardroom doors closed, he finally let himself breathe. Outside, Mary stood beside him, looking out over the city. "It's over," she said quietly, but Terry shook his head. "Not yet." He turned to her, his eyes red but clear. "There's one more thing we need to do." 3 weeks later, they stood in a courtroom at the Royal Courts of Justice. Not for Marcus's trial that would come later, months of legal proceedings that Terry didn't have the energy to think about yet. This was for something else. Something Sarah had started. The judge was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and silver hair. She looked over the documents David had prepared Sarah's trust, the video diaries, testimony from child psychologists about the boys' breakthrough with Mary and their regression without her. "Dr. Walker," the judge said, "can you tell me why you want legal co-guardianship of these children?" Mary stood. Her hands were steady, but her voice trembled slightly. "Because I made a promise to their mother, and because those boys taught me something I'd forgotten after my sister died." She paused, gathering herself. "They taught me that grief doesn't have to be the end of the story, that you can miss someone with your whole heart and still find reasons to laugh. That healing doesn't mean forgetting it, means carrying the love forward." The judge nodded slowly. "Mr. William, do you support this petition?" Terry stood beside Mary. "With everything I have." The judge looked at the 3 boys sitting in the front row with Mrs. Patel. Aaron was holding Mary's scarf. Alex had drawn her a picture that morning. Adrian kept looking back at her, making sure she was still there. "This court recognizes," the judge said, "that family is not defined by biology alone. It's defined by love, sacrifice, and the best interests of the children. Miss Walker has proven herself to be exactly what these boys need." She signed the papers. "Co-guardianship granted." Mary's knees nearly gave out. Terry caught her arm, steadying her. And in that moment, something passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but something deeper. Partnership, trust. The beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. 6 months later, the garden was full of life. Not just the boys, though they were there, laughing, playing in the mud with neighborhood kids Mary had invited over, breaking down the walls of their exclusive community one splash at a time. But there were others too. Parents, children, people from across Surrey who'd heard the story and wanted to be part of something real. Terry stood on the terrace, watching it all, and felt Sarah's presence so strongly it took his breath away. Mary came and stood beside him. "She'd love this," Mary said softly. "She's why it exists." They were quiet for a moment. Terry had something in his pocket. 2 things, actually. Documents showing Mary now owned 15% of his company shares worth millions, and a necklace from Bond Street. 4 intertwined circles representing Aaron, Alex, Adrian, and Mary, with Sarah's sapphire at the center. But he wasn't ready to give them to her yet. Not because he didn't want to, but because he'd learned something in these months of rebuilding. Love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up, day after day, in the mess and the joy and the ordinary moments that made a family. "Mary," he said quietly. She looked at him. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Her eyes softened. "You're worth not giving up on." On the lawn, Aaron called out, "Mama Mary, come see." Mary smiled and started to walk away, but Terry caught her hand. "One more thing." He handed her a letter, cream-colored, a little worn, Marcus's handwriting on the front. He wrote from prison, an apology. "I haven't opened it yet. I don't know if I can." Mary held the letter carefully. "Forgiveness takes time." Is that what Sarah would say? I think Sarah would say forgiveness isn't for him. It's for you, so you can be free. Terry looked at the letter, then at his sons, then at the garden where everything had started. "Maybe someday," he said, "but not today." Mary nodded and set the letter on the terrace table. "Come on," she said, pulling him toward the boys. "Adrian wants to show you the caterpillar he found." Terry let himself be pulled into the chaos, into the laughter, into the messy, beautiful life Sarah had fought so hard to give them. And as the sun set over Surrey, as the children played and the garden bloomed with second chances, Terry finally understood what Sarah had been trying to tell him all along. Home wasn't about the house in Virginia Water or what the neighbors thought or keeping everything under control. Home was this: 3 boys covered in mud, a woman who'd given up everything to keep a promise, and a man learning slowly, painfully, gratefully how to let love in. Sarah's legacy wasn't just in the trust fund or the video diaries or the legal documents. It was in the laughter echoing through a garden where joy had learned to live again. And in the quiet moments when Terry looked at Mary and his sons and realized that sometimes God's greatest grace comes wrapped in the things we're most afraid to lose. And that family, real family, is built not in perfection, but in the courage to keep choosing each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The kind of love that doesn't end when someone dies. It just finds new ways to grow.